Problem, reaction, solution. The left has played their part brilliantly, haven't they? Allowing homelessness, drug use, and illegals to run rampant so that they could usher in the stark contrast. Donald Trump. And when I say they, I'm talking about both sides. Donald Trump, the hero who has come to clean it all up just in time for the AI surveillance state, the technocracy. The timing is the dead giveaway. The detention facilities and the technology necessary to enslave America. Good morning, everybody. Today, we're going to have a serious discussion about the new executive order that Trump just signed that would have put Jesus and his disciples in jail for simply being homeless. And then at the end of the show, I've got some clips from the new Fantastic Four movie. I'm going to break that down for you. But, it's interesting because during Trump's first term, when he got us out of the wars, I warned you guys, the New World Order can't do two things at once. I said, watch out. There's a reason why they're stopping the wars. It's not necessarily a good thing. I mean, it's always good to stop wars, but I was like, what's next? And I told you it simply meant they were switching gears. And no sooner did we start having those discussions than COVID hit. And that was the next stage of where we're at now. Because here we go again. No wars, but the war is actually on America. In plain sight, and nobody sees it. Starting with millions of people that just died. Millions of people. Who died, had clots, heart attacks, and I can't say why, because in a transparent, free society of free speech, you're not allowed to say why. The war is in America. American jobs. War on America. American jobs falling by the wayside. The technocrats are literally telling us. Altman telling us that AI will take over our jobs. The war has been brought home. The war on American privacy. Under the guise of rooting out illegals, the militarization of our police forces, the free legal services for all police forces signed by Trump, flying of military drones on American soil, facial recognition. And now they are moving to the next phase. Homelessness. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, Jesus and every disciple were homeless by definition. They slept outside, likely during their ministries. They were on the road. They might have had a tent. Now, there were probably times where they were invited into people's homes, but I'm sure during the warmer seasons, they were outside and they just slept under a tree. In fact, for most of human history, cultures camped in tents and they moved around. There were no permits. There was no permission. Why? Because God gave us this earth. It is our birthright. It is our inheritance. It is our Adamic right to forage and roam around and use the earth. You shouldn't have to have a permit to catch a fish to eat for the day. You shouldn't have to have a permit to roam around in public areas and live. And regardless about how you feel when you see homeless people camping, we should always remember that. And we're going to talk about that as well. The state of the homeless today compared to the state of the homeless centuries ago and in antiquity. Much different type of homelessness, isn't it? We're going to talk about that today. Now, there are many reasons why people are homeless. Much of it has to do with corporate greed and how men have consolidated labor in the free market, they call it, but it's really the slave market. Why? Because greedy men, through our capitalist system, again, are able to consolidate labor, which gives them the ability to set the labor rate. And this is what enslaves men. Now, the proof of this, I'm going to give you proof, is how we went from a single breadwinner economy to two parents having to work to achieve the same lifestyle. There's your proof. Now ask yourself why that happened. Well, at the core of it, it's whatever the arbitrary wage was set at by corporate greed, right? They'll tell us, they lie to us and they tell us, oh, that's all, it's all controlled by the market. The market sets the labor rate. No, that is completely incorrect because if it did, we would be back in the 50s and 60s when a single income could support a family. But what we're given now is a wage that underperforms the cost of living. And it's been that way for decades and decades. And you all have stories. Some of you that are in your 60s and 70s, you know this to be true. You know it. And some people bought into the promise that Trump was going to make America great again. And part of that was going back to a time when a single income could support a family. Now, I doubt that half the people on the street would be there if they could go to work 30 or 40 hours a week, be able to afford their own place to live, a reliable vehicle, food, and some entertainment on that wage. And believe it or not, homelessness actually requires much more effort than a 40-hour a week job. And if you don't believe me, go buy a tent, walk out your front door with no food in your hand and $3, and you try to live for a week, and you see how difficult it actually is. When you're not sleeping comfortably, when you've got to get up and you're hungry, you don't know where you're going to get food, the walking around miles and miles a day, it's actually much harder to be homeless than it would be to go sit and make burgers for 6 or 7 hours a day. The system is broken. And yes, there is a drug problem. But again, I believe that the drug problem even is a product of the system. What am I talking about? Well, depression comes from homelessness, which can often lead to drugs. It's a vicious cycle, especially when someone is trying and failing over and over again. We've all talked to homeless people and we've heard their story. Most of these people used to be something in life. And then they tell us what happened to them. And this is what causes people to give up hope. Where do they go? They go to readily available substances. Now, the proof of this, that this is a modern phenomenon of what homelessness actually looks like now compared to what it looked like during Jesus' ministry, was that we didn't hear about drug addictions in Jesus' ministry. Now, you can say, oh, it's because they hadn't invented drugs yet. Well, there you go. There you go. The devil had not released that tool yet in human history. And now it is shaping homelessness and a large part of the homelessness issue. In other words, drugs are a product of the end times. Now, under this new executive order that Trump just passed, Jesus and his disciples would have been detained, arrested, and even institutionalized for simply living without a state approved home. They may have even been picked up for mental illness because of what they were saying. And make no mistake, this is one step closer to the mark of the beast because anybody who refuses and waives their ability to buy and sell, in the past, we could have relied on our Adamic right to exist in nature, but not anymore. One more thing taken off the table. Oh, you don't want to buy and sell? Okay, you're going to be homeless. Oh, can't do that either. Trump has literally stolen our birthright. It was given to us by God. In fact, I believe this is the precursor to something much darker. I believe that we are very close to a time in U.S. history where it will become law that you have a physical, legitimate address on a legitimate lease where you're paying money. No more couch surfing. I believe this will become a requirement for all citizens, and they will say that the homelessness stems from that. It's because people have gone around the system. Even if you're not sleeping outside, even if you have people that love you that you can stay with, they'll say, nope, that doesn't qualify. You have to be on a lease. You have to pay, and you have to pay market rate. Otherwise, you're homeless. I have a feeling that that's coming. Now, we've done videos in the past about this. We went all the way back to ancient Egypt. And this whole homeless thing, it's rebellion. It's rebellion by the enemy at its core. What am I talking about? This goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. Remember the very last plague, the firstborn of the Pharaoh. And they went door to door to the physical address. Yes, we are Egypt. A physical address is required. And because the Most High took the firstborn of the Pharaoh because of his rebellion, the ancient Hebrews then became homeless. The Exodus ensued, and they became a camp-based society, moving from place to place. Do you see now how all of this is happening again? There's nothing new under the sun. Literally, a physical address, the post and lintel in Egypt, marked by the blood of the Lamb, the passing over of those who marked the post and lintel, postal addressed, post and lintel, the post office, the headdress, the address, the headdress of the Sphinx. And in rebellion, the Pharaoh came running after the homeless people, the 12 tribes of Israel. And all of this is based on control. Because how can you cause all, great and small, rich and poor, to receive a mark and not have the ability to buy and sell if you don't have complete control over them, of where they live, the taxes they pay, and everything else? This is where it's all headed. Now, don't go running over to the left and jumping over to that side because they're just as culpable. They never solved the issue of homelessness. And in fact, they poured fuel on the fire with free drug paraphernalia, misappropriating funds that good people gave to them to try to solve the homeless problem. All of that was misused. They could have easily created vast areas for homeless people to camp in parks. They could have reappropriated different parks and things and set some basic rules like no drug use. And then they politicized the whole issue. The left did this on purpose to present to us the modern state of homelessness, which, of course, as I explained, looks much different than it did 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, nobody would have thought twice to see hundreds of people sleeping outside in sleeping bags. But now it's a problem because of all the fuel that's been poured on it. Yes, the version of homelessness today that they give us is not the result of the human condition. It's the result of a forced construct, the worst version, so that the whole thing can be burned to the ground in preparation for the mark of the beast. We are right back in the Exodus all over again. There's nothing new under the sun. And anybody who opts out of the system will have very few choices to survive. Now, another aspect of modern laws that would have had Jesus and his disciples thrown in prison is a different story in the Bible, the gleaning of the fields. Now, we're going to break this down in a way that we have not broken this down before. I've mentioned the gleaning of the fields before, past decodes, but today we're going to look at another aspect of it because there is much more to that story than I think any of us could have ever imagined. Jesus was making a statement, wasn't he? In that single act, he was challenging the system of capitalism, a system that controls what is given away for free, even if it's going to be thrown away anyway. Jesus gleaning a wheat field was no different than people standing behind a Walmart Mart or a Costco to collect near expired goods. Yet, if you go and try to do that, you stand behind a Walmart or a Costco to try to collect what's being thrown away, you'll go to jail. Now, they give us all these dumb excuses as to why they do this. But at the end of the day, Walmart and Costco would rather pay somebody to throw away these goods than give it away for free. And they say, oh, it's because of the liability. Okay, somebody gets sick. Well, how about the non-perishable stuff? How about furniture and all the things they just throw away? And this is capitalism for you. It's greed. And it's because, oh, we can't give it away because then you won't buy it. If we give it away, then no one's going to buy anything. You see the problem here? Even though it's going in the trash. Now rewind 2,000 years ago and imagine the Caesar saying that, oh, you can't glean the wheat on the edge of the field because it's going bad. You might get sick. And meanwhile, the birds and other wildlife are going to town on the wheat with no problems. Let's get into this, you guys. This is insane. Trump signs executive order making it easier to remove homeless people from the streets. Now, I've got the executive order pulled up. We're going to read this article, and then we're going to get into some of the executive order. And then, like I said, at the end of the show, I've got some clips from Fantastic Four for you guys. Trump signed an executive order Thursday making it easier for local jurisdictions to remove homeless people from the streets. The order directs Attorney General Pam Bondi to reverse judicial precedents and end consent decrees that limit jurisdictions' ability to relocate homeless people. Notice how they just built all these detention centers for the illegals. See the timing here? It also redirects federal resources so that affected homeless people are transferred to rehabilitation and substance misuse facilities. It also directs Bonnie to work with Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy, Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, blah, 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 to fast track federal funding to states and municipalities that crack down on open illicit drug use, urban camping, and loitering. Notice how they wrap all this together. Of course, open illicit drug use should be taken care of, but not urban camping and loitering. Those two things are subjective. And urban squatting, and track the location of sex offenders. So they're wrapping all this up when two or three of these items should be completely okay. What needs to happen is there need to be designated areas where people can live in the land. You guys, we have these wide open parks. Why not cordon off an area where people can camp? On Friday, the president suggested the order marked a common sense approach to the nation's homelessness problem. Right outside, there were some tents, and they're getting rid of them right now. You can't do that, especially in Washington, D.C. I talk to the mayor about it all the time. I said, you got to get rid of the tents. Trump told a reporter on the White House South Lawn, we can't have it. When leaders come to see me to make a trade deal for billions and billions and even trillions, and they come in and there's tents outside the White House, we can't have that. It doesn't sound nice. Easy for him to say after he just sold huge chunks of our economy off to Saudi Arabia and other countries and is taking all of our jobs through artificial intelligence. White House press secretary said in a statement, executive order is part of Trump's commitment to end homelessness across America. You guys, he says he's going to end it by removing vagrant criminals from our streets. Why are all vagrants criminals? They're making broad, sweeping statements, aren't they? And redirecting resources toward substance abuse programs. The Trump administration will ensure that Americans feel safe in their own communities and that individuals suffering from addiction or mental health struggles. Who decides if you have a mental health struggle? Right? Now, I pulled up the executive order, and literally, what if you're wearing a flat earth shirt or a hat that says release the Epstein files? Well, now some bureaucrat can decide if you have a mental health problem. It's no different than people showing up and telling you, looking in your house to see how clean it is, and then taking your kids away because your kids are in an unsafe environment. More and more of our freedoms and rights are being eroded. And they know that people can go around the system by being homeless, but they don't want you to go around the system anymore. They want to force you into this economy. And they'll do it by the problem, reaction, solution. Both sides working together to advance complete domination and control. The left allowing it to happen, and the right offering the solution. Says here, advocates for the homeless condemned the executive orders, with some saying that it will make homelessness worse for communities. The executive orders ignore decades of evidence-based housing and support services in practice. They represent a punitive approach that has consistently failed to resolve homelessness and instead exacerbates the challenges faced by vulnerable individuals, deprives people of their basic rights, and makes it harder to solve homelessness. Now, if you don't believe me about this, look at the detention centers that they've built for the illegals and ask yourself a very simple question. Why have so many detention centers? Now, listen closely here. Why have so many detention centers been built with such a large capacity that all of these ICE agents couldn't even fill with the rate that they're finding and detaining these people. In other words, they start detaining these illegals and they bring them to these facilities, and literally there's 10 or 15 or 100 people, and it's all the other cells are empty. Imagine them marching a few of these people in this huge, hundreds of acres, and it just begs the question: what are these facilities really for? They would have to quadruple the amount of ICE agents to fill all of these facilities. And so that's the dead giveaway. I I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that they're probably going to start putting homeless people in these facilities. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that that might start happening in the next year. Well, I guess we'll see, right? Wow. So people in Oregon, where there's a lot of homelessness, are sweating. They're like, what's going on here? Now, the sad part about this is a lot of these people voted for Trump. Now, obviously, again, homelessness is a problem, but it's a construct of something that they had already created. Wow. Let's take a look at this executive order here. Here it is. Let's read some of it. Ending crime and disorder on American streets. Wow. Meanwhile, when's the last time you got your car windows smashed and things stolen out of your vehicle and you call the cops and they do absolutely nothing? They can't even find the people who did it, nor do they want to take the time. When's the last time you got your house ripped off and nothing was done about it? Let's read this. Endemic vagrancy. See, this is what they call this. Endemic vagrancy. Jesus' lifestyle is now called endemic vagrancy. Disorderly behavior, sudden confrontations, and violent attacks made our cities unsafe. How about the people stalking and stealing our young people under the guise of modeling agencies and then abusing them at 14 or 15 years old and then covering the whole thing up? I think that would be a problem too. And wealthy people getting away with this for decades. The number of individuals living on the streets of the United States on a single night during the last year of the previous administration was 274,224. Are you seeing the pattern here? We went from tracking how many illegals there were to now we're tracking how many homeless people are. They're the next group. They are the next target. That doesn't even sound like a lot to me. Does it? I would think it'd be like millions, but apparently it isn't. The overwhelming majority of these individuals are addicted to drugs, have a mental health condition, or both. How do they know? Did they do a study? Nearly two-thirds of the homeless individuals report having regularly used hard drugs like meth, coke, opiates in their lifetimes. I think most Americans could probably say that. An equally large share of homeless individuals reported suffering from mental health conditions. The federal government and states have spent tens of billions of dollars on failed programs that address homelessness, but not its root causes, leaving other citizens vulnerable to public safety threats. See, this root causes part gives me pause because, like I said, ultimately, they may require every citizen to have a physical address, a legitimate address where you are paying money to be there. No freebies. And most of you know this because you've seen even the progression of couch surfing. It used to be a thing where if you were renting somewhere and your friend showed up and needed somewhere to stay for a few months, your landlord didn't think twice. As long as that person wasn't causing any problems. I remember in the 80s and 90s, you never heard of landlords like saying, watching their tenants like a hawk to make sure there was nobody getting any free rent. And then something changed in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. The landlords started cracking down, especially in some of these cities. There was no more free rent. Couch surfing was not allowed, strictly forbidden. That person had to be put on the lease, and they said, "Oh, it's all because of legal. It's legal in case something happens. Everything's always legal, right? When it benefits them. Oh, it's all about liability." And now it's unheard of. You can't couch surf anymore. Now, keep going here. This just makes me mad. You guys, I get real defensive when it comes to Jesus, right? As we should. Shifting homeless individuals into long term institutional settings for humane treatment through the appropriate use of civil commitment will restore public order. So, literally, you could get committed and will. Surrendering our cities and citizens to disorder and fears neither compassionate to homeless nor other citizens. My administration will take a new approach, focus on protecting public safety. Wow. Seek in appropriate cases to revert the reversal of federal or state judicial precedents and the termination of consent decrees. Okay, so they're basically going through and getting rid of all these laws that protected homeless people, and they're going to throw a bunch of money at it, just like they threw a bunch of money at ICE in this last bill, the big beautiful bill. This is the same thing, except they're going after a different group. Wow, this is insane, you guys. So we're going to have a bunch of cops going through and rooting out homeless people, having them incarcerated, having them institutionalized, put in a drug treatment program. Unbelievable. Now, I told you guys they were coming for us next. And even though I'm not homeless right now, I was homeless for the first 6 years of this channel. Now, I'd never really had to sleep on the streets, but you all remember the bed I made in the back of my truck, just in case, because I had no physical address. Now, fortunately, through my faithfulness and sacrifice, God finally blessed me with a pathway to a home. But it didn't come easy. And not everyone is in the same position that I am in to finally have a place to live that you can call your own. Understand, there are people that choose this lifestyle of homelessness to be more of a Christian. They sell everything like Jesus commanded, and they become homeless to minister just like Jesus and his disciples did. You guys, when you sell everything, you're homeless. And Trump says that's illegal now, in direct opposition of Jesus' edict to those who had a higher calling to minister, to go into the ministry. This suggests to me that this is where the Christian persecution will begin in America. The homeless people that are trying to help the people who are on drugs, that are homeless. I know some of you personally who do this very thing. You drive in your car and you minister. Yep, the van lifers are getting nervous. You are absolutely right. Our government cannot stand when they think somebody's getting something for free. Yet they fleece all of us and they get all kinds of free stuff. They don't have to worry about where they're going to sleep, if it's going to be warm enough. They don't have to worry about these things. So now the boot is on the neck. And I hope people wake up to this. I really hope they do. And I'll put a link to the story. I'm going to climb off of that because I'm getting upset, you guys. I'm getting upset about stuff like this. Trump continues to race bait. Check out this meme here. This is one of his social media posts. of Trump and Vance in cop cars chasing Obama, depicted as O.J. Simpson in the white Bronco. Talk about dredging up racial tension and white anger about the black man who got away with killing a white woman. This is a very touchy subject for a lot of white people. Still angry about it, and Trump just dug it right back up. This is our president, you guys. Now, I don't know if Trump is intentionally being blatantly obvious at all these diversion tactics away from the Epstein case, or I don't know if we're just beginning to see crystal clear of how this works. This is unprecedented. Trump posts the meme of himself and J.D. Vance chasing Obama in OJ's white Bronco. You can't make this up. Wow. Somebody wake me up from this nightmare. Now, what else is going on? Remember, Trump said he was going to help the farmers and go easy on the illegals and the farmers to help the farmers. Well, apparently that's not happening. Trump always says things, but he rarely does them. And these farmers, I read a story of a lady in Washington State, cherry farmer, white lady, but she hires illegals every year to pick the cherries. Well, the illegals are running for the hills because ICE is creeping around. And a bunch of her crop went bad because it was not picked off of the trees. And she's questioning her decision that she voted for Trump. Farmers are facing a fork on Trump's immigration highway. So what's next? Here it is. For Candace Lyle, a cherry harvest is always a race against the clock. Eastern Washington is famous for its cherries, and the fourth generation farmers' lush orchards not far from the Columbia River. There's just a short window when they are the perfect ripeness. Wait too long, and they are too soft to sell. For sale, and they must be picked by hand, lots of them. Finding those hands locally can be a challenge. Like other growers, some of the workers are foreign-born, whose presence is reflected in Hispanic restaurants in the nearby 3,300 resident town of Matawa. But this summer, the harvest coincided with Trump's mass deportation sweeps. Rumors swirled of roadway checkpoints. More than 100 workers who started Lyle's harvest dwindled to 30 by the second week, leading her farm to struggle to get cherries picked in time. Some were picked too late, she said, but the financial hit to her farm was likely to be far less than what some other growers experience. There's a lot of farms that didn't pick because they didn't have enough labor. Lyle is a Trump supporter in a conservative farming region. She favors stricter border security because of worries about drug cartels, but she wants to see a path toward a stable workforce. So this is her. Can't find people to pick the cherries. Notice how we were sold evil drug cartels. That was the catalyst that people agreed to enforce the border. We don't hear about the drug cartels anymore, do we? There's something else happening here. So, now, let's get into some of this superhero stuff. We're going to start with Trump. He just finished up this trade deal with the European Union. And I'm watching him and listening to him talk, and I look at his face, and it literally looks like he's wearing a superhero mask. Is it just me, or does it look like maybe when he was out golfing, he had like a superhero mask on? Let's listen to this. I mean, this is weird. Look up around the eyebrows. It's like all lighter around his eyes, like he's wearing a raccoon mask or something. It's a little bit creepy. And then someone asks him about Epstein. He gets all angry.
They've received a letter. They'll probably receive a letter of clarification or a confirmation type letter, which will go out sometime during this week, prior to August 1st. And the tariffs will start being paid by those countries prior to August, on August 1st and beyond. Okay?
Mr. President, was part of the rush to get this deal done to knock the Jeffrey Epstein story out?
Oh, you got to be kidding with that. No, had nothing to do with it. Only you would think that.
Now, obviously, he's not really wearing a mask, but you have to ask yourself, was this intentional? The way they did his makeup. I mean, he literally looks like Batman right here. It's pretty crazy, you guys. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? And then we'll get into Fantastic Four. Crazy matrix we live in, isn't it, you guys? Now, if you hadn't heard, a new Fantastic Four film came out. And of course, FF, Fantastic Four. F is the sixth letter of the alphabet. So FF is 66. And I was like, oh, this movie cannot possibly have anything to do with Donald Trump. But believe it or not, it actually did. There was a solid Back to the Future connection in the film, which I'm going to show you next. They literally go 88 miles an hour to jump through a wormhole. I was like, this guy must have a lot of power to be featured so many times in these mainstream films. Let's take a look at some of this, you guys.
We need to get to 0.88 speed of light.
0.88 speed of light. Now, the scene here, I don't want to spoil this for you, but this, of course, is Sue Storm. I think her name is Sue Storm. And she becomes pregnant, but there is a threat. It's this planet eater. It's a planet eater. So they have to basically go through warp speed to go and confront this planet eater before it gets to Earth. And they negotiate with this planet eater, and the planet eater wants her child that has special abilities. And so they're trying to escape from this thing to get back to Earth so they can prepare a defense. And she's going into labor, and they're like, 88 miles. This is crazy.
Coming up on 0.82.
Now she's going into labor, of course, and this is, of course, is the thing. And he's got to skirt this wormhole or this black hole so he could jump through time and space.
Why do you want to take it? Something's wrong with him.
Got another clip here for you guys.
Ben, Herbie!
80.88%, which of course is 88 miles an hour. It's laughable at this point. So that's Fantastic Four. Let me go back into the chat. There was more in the film and all kinds of 66s. All these FF phrases that they come up with at the beginning of the film, but I didn't want to belabor the point. It's obvious now what FF is. It's Apollo. It's so obvious. It's DNA. It's genetic manipulation, which is the entire story of the Fantastic Four. It's the twin numbers, 66. It's so obvious. All right, I'm in the chat, you guys. So what do you think about all this? They're now setting this up to go after the homeless, institutionalized, and the threat that they gave us. Oh, it's all the drugs, as if the homeless people are the only ones with a drug problem, right? Oh, it's the drugs and lawlessness and crime. It's all the, wait a minute. I thought the drug cartels were doing all the crime. Oh, now it's the homeless. It's a crime. Wow. Isaac's tried to change the subject. He's like, Casey, relax. I just take it personally because I know some of you who are homeless. And I say I'm angry because I'm angry for you. And the previous situation I was in. I didn't ask to be homeless. Homelessness happens to you sometimes through unfair laws. In my case, I had to start my whole life over because I gave all my money away so that my ex-wife could raise my kids. So I was poor. I had to start all over again. But I powered through it, and God made something beautiful out of it. He made this channel out of it. And then in the end, after a decade of faithfulness, he said, "Okay, I think you probably earned a house." Anyway, and others of you have gone through similar situations, and you didn't ask to be homeless. You didn't ask to be sleeping in your car, but it happens to you. And this makes me angry that he's doing this because I see it a mile away. I know what he's doing. He's like, "Okay, we're running out of stuff to do with ICE. Let's flip it over to the homeless now." And then when they go to digital currency and they start like just taking money out of your account for infractions because it's all going to be digital, no more cash. Then there's going to be more homeless people. "Oh, you can't pay? Oh, that's okay. We'll send you to a detention facility." Right? This is what they're setting it up for, the mark of the beast. They're setting it up for the final push to control every aspect of your life. I see this a mile away. If you don't come to the defense of the unfair treatment of the illegals, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be deported. I'm saying the unfair treatment. And then you don't come to the defense of the homeless, and then it just keeps going. There's a saying about this, isn't there? All the groups that they go after, if you don't come to their defense, when they come to your group, nobody's going to come to your defense. How is the blackberry wine? Let's end the show with the positive. It's still fermenting. We're on 2 weeks now. I think 2 weeks will be Wednesday. And it's in the jug, the gallon jug. I did sample some of it. It was already pretty strong, but it was still very sugary, which means that the yeast still has to do its job to convert the sugar into alcohol. So it's still off gassing CO2, which is exciting. They say the longer you let it go, the better. Like, we're talking months, which is just insane to me. Like, something could be in a bottle for that long and not spoil. And so that's really cool. So I'm just going to let it keep going. I mean, I'm not in a hurry to drink it. It's a whole gallon. And it's fun watching the bubbles rise up around the neck of the bottle. So that's cool. So, all right. Yes, blackberry jam and jelly is good too. M Saints waiting on my yeast. Yeah, I kind of cheated on the yeast part. I ordered it, which is so crazy to me. You can go on and order yeast online, and it was pretty cheap. Like, I got like 6 packs for like $5. Yeast is like super cheap. And apparently I could use this yeast for bread if I wanted to. It's a wine yeast, but you could also use it for bread, because I like research this, because I'm like, okay, how am I going to use all this yeast? Obviously, well, I can start making breads with it, which is really cool. And so, um, the yeast is interesting because it comes like in these dry packets. And you know what's crazy is I've cooked my whole life, but I've always been afraid of yeast for some reason. Well, now I'm starting to learn, and I was only able to learn through this winemaking process, watching the yeast and how it performs, how it likes a certain temperature. It likes like a warm environment. When I first started processing the blackberries, uh, first you pour the hot water over them, and then you add the sugar and you mix it all together, but you can't put the yeast on right away. You've got to let it like cool down, because it will kill the yeast if it's too hot. But if it's too cold, the yeast won't grow. So you sprinkle it on top, and then it like changes before your eyes. You could literally see it like working, and then you mix it all in after it's been sitting on top and become acclimated to the substance, and it just will eat the sugar. It just starts eating the sugar, turning it into alcohol. And then the process just keeps going and going and going. And it's kind of interesting. So, all right, I'm back in the chat, you guys. Homemade bread. Angela loves homemade bread. I just don't like yeast infections. I don't think anybody does. Yeah, yeast infections are a result of imbalance. That's all. There's always some yeast. Oh my gosh. Now we're talking about yeast infections. Betty uses yeast for cinnamon rolls. See, that's what I want to do. Like, I used to make cinnamon rolls my whole life. It was one of the first things I learned how to make because it's so simple. Like, you can make it from scratch. But the problem is, if you don't have yeast, it's not going to look and feel like a cinnamon roll. It's going to look and feel like a biscuit when it's done if you don't put any yeast in it. So now I'm going to do real cinnamon rolls that rise and are fluffy. So that's what I want to do. Real Deals uses fast acting yeast. Yeah, cinnamon rolls are my favorite. Oh my gosh. Because it's fun. Like to make a cinnamon roll, like you make the base, you make the flour, the flour and the dough, and you roll it out. And then you put like butter, melted butter. You smear it all over it. And then you put sugar and cinnamon, smear it all over. And then you roll it up and then you cut it. Now, when I got older, I got more advanced. When I rolled it out, I would roll it out into a square because then you make use of the whole roll, right? So you roll it out into like a square. And then when you roll it, it's perfect. You can just cut sections of it. But they always turn out like biscuits almost. But now I'm going to do like, there's a place. Well, there's a place everywhere. We've all been to like fairs and things. I guess it's the season of the fairs, right? So when you go to the fair, one of my favorite things to get was a cinnamon roll. Old fashioned cinnamon rolls with the cream cheese drenched on top. Oh my gosh, those are so good. And one time, years and years ago, uh, during my second marriage, we went and helped at a fair in Ventura County. There's a Ventura County fair, and it was the cinnamon roll trailer. We got to work the cinnamon roll trailer. Now that's some hard work. We did it. We got paid for it. And the smell, oh my gosh. And then, of course, at the end of the day, we got sent home with some cinnamon rolls. My goodness. Now, when I was younger, after my first year of college, I would come back and work at all the fairs in the Central Valley. For those of you that lived in the Central Valley, you might have met me a couple times. Think back now, Central Valley, California. If any of you are watching, probably very few watching because it's so stinking early in the morning over there. But back in, I guess this was the 90s. Yeah, like 93, 4, 5, right in that range. I worked the Alhambra water booths. I worked the Alameda County Fair, the State Fair in Sacramento. I worked the Stanislaus Fair. And basically, we signed people up for Alhambra water home service. So I was one of the guys behind the cooler. And back then, it was hot. So people would come up to the cooler just to get water. And me and my friends would talk to them and we'd be like, hey, you want to sign up for home service? It's free. It's always free, right? It's free until you have to start paying. Until you have to start paying. It's free. So we would sign up people for home service. And back then, uh, we would do tricks. We would do tricks with the 5-gallon jugs. I could literally take 2 5-gallon jugs, one in each hand from the ground and pull it up onto each of my shoulders in one swoop. I used to be able to do that. I actually have some 5-gallon jugs here. I should try that. No, maybe I shouldn't. I'm 52 now. I don't know if I could do that anymore, but I could back then. Can you speak Carney, Casey? Oh, yeah. We had a whole language and we used to trade the water. Apparently, water was very tight resource because everybody wanted it. The guys that did the ribs, they're like, we need the water. And so we would give them 5-gallon jugs. So they would put it on the flames to keep the flames down. So we would trade. We traded with the cinnamon roll people. I'm trying to think of some interesting stories during that time in my life. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. But oh man, talk about being healthy. You're drinking this water all day long and you're active, it's hot, sweating it out. Yeah. So I don't even know how we got on that. The Maven lived in Modesto during that time. Yeah, I think we did work the Stanislaus. That was the Stanislaus County Fair, I think. If you live in Modesto, worked that one a couple times in those years. All right. What else is going on, you guys? Oh yeah, my sister just went to the state fair in California, Sacramento. She said it was through the roof pricing. She couldn't even believe how much the food costs. This is where they get you. The food is now super expensive. She said a turkey leg was $25 for a turkey leg. Can you believe that? $25 for a turkey leg. So that's where they get you, is with the food. I don't think it's that expensive to get in. Uh-oh. Did we get dropped? Things started spinning there for a second. But anyway, yeah. $25 for a turkey leg. Can you believe that? You could buy a whole turkey for 25 bucks, right? Apparently that's a thing. Now, back in the day, that wasn't a thing. Nobody ate turkey legs back in the day, but apparently now that's like a huge barbecue item, a turkey leg. I mean, I guess you could justify, you could say, okay, that turkey leg's going to fill me up for the entire day. I mean, I guess you could justify $25 for a turkey leg, but I don't know. To me, that just sounds insane. Yeah, a whole turkey's $25. Oh my gosh. Oh, and then she told me, my sister told me, okay, for those of you that have been to the state fair in California, in Sacramento, there used to be a water park. Remember the water park? Remember the water park? I forget what it's called. Raging Rapids, maybe, or something. Anyway, so my sister says, Casey, you know what happened to Raging Rapids? I'm like, what? She said they turned it into a giant cannabis thing. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" She's like, "Yeah, no children are allowed. You go in and it's just a huge cannabis dispensary now where there used to be the water park." I was like, "Wow, times have changed. Times have changed." Turkey legs became popular at Renaissance fairs. Thanks, Skies Over Spokane. Yeah, I need to get caught up on life. I get a little isolated out here. I don't really see what's going on in the world. Yeah, $25 used to be a whole 25-pound turkey. Now all you get is the leg. Roaring Rapids, it was fun, says Bonnie. Water parks are a giant toilet anyway. When you really think about it, you're actually right. Oh my gosh. Just a cesspool. Thousands of people bathing in it. My gosh. There was a really great water park in, I think it was Manteca, the Manteca water slides. And that was fun. I don't think those exist anymore. All right. Love turkey legs, but I look and taste it and it doesn't taste like turkey. It tastes like more like him legs. That's pretty funny. 3 pounds ground beef, 18.99. Yep. Thought we were gonna make America great again. Now people are going broke eating hamburgers now. It's unbelievable. Yeah, people have shied away from public bathing now. I mean, public pools and even hot tubs. People really aren't into that anymore just because, there's weird stuff in the water now. Parasites, all this stuff, diseases. Oh my gosh. Love you too, brother. Thomas has been homeless. Like you, I put on faith in Jesus. He made a way. Prayers for Maine. Amen. Isaac's starting a fast for 2 weeks. All kids pee in the pool. Yeah, because you don't want to get out, right? You're having too much fun. That's disgusting. Eating once a day prolongs your life for years. Amen. My dogs would get out of my pool to pee. Even dogs know to do that. Uh, they're sending us some tariff checks, giving us our own money back, throwing us a bone, which will then increase inflation, and they get it all back anyway. It's ridiculous. Wasn't everyone obese on floating chairs in Wall-E, says Crystal. I might need to take another look at that film. Everybody, please thumbs up the video. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop off of here. I'll put links to all this in the pinned comment, like I always do. I'm not sure what we're going to do tomorrow. Probably some more Blacklist. But I'll see you guys later on the flip side. Take care. Much love.